Most people believe that the older you get, the slower your metabolism becomes, the more difficult it is to achieve a physical six-pack. Well, I just turned 40 years old, as you can see here on the photo for those watching on YouTube, and I have visible abs. I feel the best I've ever felt in my entire life, and I owe it all to this morning routine of drinking coffee every single morning. But it's not just the coffee, it's some little tricks and tips that I do every morning to stay lean year-round and to have amazing energy levels. In this lesson, I'll be sharing with you how coffee can do the same thing for you. Doesn't matter if you're 40, 70, 80, 90, or 21, you're gonna benefit from this routine. Here's why I believe coffee is a major fat loss hack. Coffee has a powerful polyphenol called conjugated linoleic acid, CGA. And what CGA does, it tells your metabolism to burn fat cells for energy. This is a similar mechanism that statin drugs use to lower cholesterol levels. However, there are no side effects by having the coffee, and you will not plummet your cholesterol levels, which is not a good idea. That's a sidebar for a different video. CGA also cuts your morning cravings, preventing you from eating donuts, pancakes, breakfast foods. These are high carb foods, which will not allow you to have a physical six-pack. When you drink a cup of coffee loaded with CGA, not only are you getting these benefits I just mentioned, it also activates your liver to produce healthy bile. Bile aids in detoxifying your cells, and it also helps with fat loss. When you support your liver with CGA, it helps your liver process fats and glucose more efficiently by lowering your triglyceride levels and stabilizing blood sugars. The effect of this blood sugar balancing act decreases your risk for metabolic syndrome and diabetes while inhibiting the growth of new fat cells. Working together with the caffeine, the CGA helps to reduce belly fat by increasing the number of cells that are burned for energy. A Norwegian study found that women who drink high CGA coffee dropped 3 times more weight than those who consumed lower CGA brews. So how do you know if your coffee beans are loaded with CGA? Well, you want to make sure it's a medium roast as opposed to a dark roast. Once the beans are roasted beyond medium, they've lost about 75% of their fat-blasting polyphenols, the CGA. And if you can find coffee that's grown in high altitudes, it actually contains more CGA. The high altitudes and the extreme temperature changes actually produces the most polyphenols in a coffee bean. You want to for sure make sure your coffee beans are also organic. Unfortunately, coffee is one of the most sprayed crops in the world. What are they sprayed with? Glyphosate, pesticides. These are actually inflammatory and prevent you from achieving health and visible abs. You also want to make sure the coffee beans you're buying have been tested for contaminants like mold and pesticides, as I mentioned, and other contaminants like heavy metals. Unfortunately, a lot of coffee beans, like the ones you find at Starbucks, Peet's, Dunkin' Donuts, these commercial chain coffee shops, are not healthy coffee. That's not going to get you the results we're talking about here. I'll share in a minute the coffee that I drink, but here are some more really cool studies on what coffee can do for you. Studies show that coffee actually prevents cardiovascular disease as well. Consuming high CGA coffee may improve blood flow and endothelial function after meals, meaning the chlorogenic acid may help to reduce some of the risk factors for cardiovascular diseases and atherosclerosis. I'll drop those studies down below. High CGA coffee also lowers inflammation. If you're looking to burn fat and see your abs, it's all about inflammation. When your cell membranes are inflamed, your fat-burning hormones will have a difficult time doing its job of burning fat. So if you get lower inflammation by drinking coffee, that would be extremely beneficial. Chlorogenic acid has been shown to lower levels of inflammation over a long period of time and even prevent chronic disease. Another key to burning fat and seeing your abs is mastering your blood sugar and insulin levels. And studies show that chlorogenic acid may regulate glucose levels, which can be beneficial for losing weight and seeing those abs. High CGA coffee can also regulate and lower your blood pressure levels. Chlorogenic acid has been shown to benefit blood pressure by causing a statistically moderate reduction in diastolic and systolic blood pressure during the ingestion period. So when you're buying your coffee, make sure it's a medium roast. Make sure it's organic. If it was grown in high altitudes bonus points. If they've tested for heavy metals, contaminants like mold and pesticides, extra bonus points. And if you don't want to have to do all that research because I've done it for you, then I suggest Purity Coffee. I've been drinking Purity Coffee since 2019. It hits all those requirements. You can see I'm holding a bag right here, medium roast organic. This is what I use. I put this in my blender. I buy the whole beans and I freshly grind it. You could buy a cheap $10 to $15 blender, which I'll drop a link for you to find on Amazon in the notes down below. And then I put the blended coffee or the grinded coffee in a French press. That's the way I make my coffee. I pour boiled water in the French press, about 2 cups, and I let it steep. Well, I stir it for about 5 seconds and then let it steep for 5 minutes. I just let it sit there. Then I push down the French press, pour that into a cup. And hey, you could get Purity Coffee over at 𝙄𝙬𝘽𝙎𝑐offee.com for 15% off by using the coupon code 𝙄𝐾AMP, camp with the K, and I'll drop a link for that with the code down below. But hold on, there's some other things I do to my coffee to enhance its fat burning capabilities. I also add 1 tablespoon of grass-fed ghee. Grass-fed ghee is clarified butter. It removes most of the lactose. So if you're lactose sensitive, you should be doing just fine with grass-fed ghee. But here's how it helps with fat loss. Research on grass-fed ghee suggests it can be beneficial for managing insulin resistance, particularly due to its high content of butyrate, which is a short-chain fatty acid. Butyrate has been shown to help regulate insulin levels and reduce inflammation, both which are crucial for improving insulin sensitivity. Studies in animal models have demonstrated that butyrate can prevent and reverse diet-induced insulin resistance. While more human trials are needed, I have seen it help with a lot of my students in my academy memberships. Now, in human studies, ghee made from grass-fed butter is also rich in conjugated linoleic acid, CLA, which has been shown to improve lipid profiles, insulin sensitivity, and help with fat loss. So I add 1 tablespoon of grass-fed ghee to my cup of coffee. Now I add a few more things. Let's get into the next ingredient here. That's going to be 1 tablespoon of medium chain triglyceride. This is called MCT oil. MCT oil, particularly the C8 MCT oil, which is caprylic acid, offers remarkable benefits for metabolism and something called mitochondrial uncoupling. Now this might get a little sciencey, but hear me out. This helps with lowering inflammation and increasing your basal metabolic rate, in other words, your metabolism, so you burn more fat. I want you to think of mitochondrial uncoupling to a car engine running without engaging the gears. Normally, the engine, which we'll call the mitochondria within your cells, burns fuel, glucose or fat, to produce power, which is ATP. It does this efficiently. In mitochondrial uncoupling, the fuel is still burned, but the energy is released as heat instead of being converted into useful power. This dissipates the energy and can increase metabolism, much like an idling car engine burns fuel without moving the car. This mechanism can help in regulating body weight and protecting against metabolic diseases by increasing energy expenditure. Caprylic acid, MCT oil, a medium chain triglyceride, is rapidly absorbed and converted into ketones in your body, providing a quick and efficient energy source. This process enhances metabolic rate and supports weight management. Additionally, caprylic acid promotes this mitochondrial uncoupling process. So in a nutshell, when you consume MCT oil, you allow your metabolism to have a quick energy source, which helps you have more energy, but it increases your metabolism so you burn more calories, and it lowers inflammation at the same time. This is a 1-2 punch for feeling good and burning fat to look good. I will drop all the studies on this in the notes down below. Now you want to make sure when you buy your medium chain triglyceride oil, your MCT oil, it's in a glass bottle and it's organic. I'll drop a link for the one I personally use and I'll put it in the notes down below. Okay, there are some bonus things you can do here. I've done this from time to time to get lean really quick and really lower my body fat percentage. And these are gonna be proven ingredients that you could either put in your coffee with the ingredients I already mentioned, or you could take in a supplement form. All of these ingredients will help you burn fat so you can start seeing your abs even faster. So the first ingredient is called African mango. African mango has been shown to promote weight loss, especially around your hip and your waist. The next ingredient are raspberry ketones, which helps the body's production of adiponectin, which is one of your body's fat-burning hormones. It tells your body to burn more fat. The next ingredient is L-carnitine, which increases your mitochondria's ability to burn fat for energy. It's kind of like giving your mitochondria a shuttle bus of energy to produce ketones. Again, that helps with metabolic rate and lowering of inflammation. The next ingredient is green tea leaf extract. It contains a rich source of EGCG, which has been shown to actually target belly fat. And the final ingredient here is something called forskolin extract, derived from mint plants to aid in weight loss by balancing your body's appetite hormone called leptin. Now, you could find these ingredients individually, or you could do what I do, and I actually use this product called 𝙎𝙬𝘽𝙎𝘾 Radical Metabolizer. I simply just take one capsule with my cup of coffee every morning, and it has all those ingredients I just listed. You could even open up the capsule and put in your coffee if you want. I've done that before as well. And you can actually get a bottle of Radical Metabolizer with 10% off by going to uniqhealth.com/ketocamp and using the coupon code ketocamp10 at checkout for 10% off. I'll drop those details in the notes down below. The last thing I put in my coffee is 30 grams of a high quality protein source. Look, I believe protein is probably the most important macronutrient. When you have enough protein, especially in the morning, you preserve lean muscle mass, helps you build lean muscle mass, which is very important for increasing your metabolic rate. It's really important for insulin sensitivity and glucose management. Muscle is where it's at. And a lot of people don't have enough muscle, which is why they don't see their abs. So I include 30 grams of grass-fed, grass-finished beef isolate protein in my coffee. I actually use this company called �゛𝑖𝑝, and I put 1.5 scoops of their vanilla. They have different flavors, which is 30 grams of protein. I put that in the coffee I just mentioned. I mix it or blend it. That is my morning cup of coffee. And the reason why I have this in the morning with the coffee is because when you have the 30 grams of protein, it activates something called muscle protein synthesis, where you start building and preserving lean muscle mass, and that is very important for your metabolism. It's very important for you to start seeing your abs. And the cool thing about �゛𝑖𝑝 is that they sponsor my podcast, and they hooked you all up with 20% off any of their products if you go to �゛𝑖𝑝foods.com/BenAzadi. The 20% off coupon code is automatically applied. Something else I do to get the biggest bang for my buck when it comes to my morning cup of coffee is I wait 90 minutes after waking up to have my coffee, and I encourage you to do the same thing. Here's why. Waiting after 90 minutes to have your cup of coffee has several benefits. It allows your body to naturally decrease cortisol levels, which are typically high in the morning. Consuming caffeine too early can further elevate cortisol, leading to an increased stress and anxiety response. By delaying caffeine intake to 90 minutes, you help maintain a more balanced cortisol rhythm, enhancing alertness naturally. Additionally, this practice could prevent the midday energy crash often associated with early caffeine consumption, promoting sustained energy levels throughout the day. And look, that's because cortisol is way more powerful than caffeine. And when you have caffeine with your levels of cortisol being high, you're not going to really get the benefit of the caffeine. But when you wait 90 minutes, the cortisol levels drop. That's what you want to do. So wait an hour and a half. I know that might sound very difficult to do. You might want to start off by doing 15 minutes and then 30 minutes and making your way to 90 minutes after you've waken up to have your cup of coffee. Now let's get to some of the questions you posted here on the YouTube channel. First question is this: what body fat percentage do I need to hit in order to see my abs? Okay, that's a great question. Now this is different for men versus women. And let me just caveat this by saying, when I went through my initial weight loss, you can see some photos here. We'll show some photos of me. I used to be 250 pounds, 34% body fat. I lost 80 pounds of fat, and I went to as low as 6% body fat. And I had clear, visible abs at 6% body fat. But I learned a lesson. I didn't really feel that healthy in single-digit body fat. You don't necessarily have to go that low. I hover around 12 to 14% body fat. I could still see my abs, and my hormones are functioning so much better around 12 to 14% body fat than when I was at 6% body fat. But in general, for men, if you want to see your abs, you want to be somewhere between 11% body fat and around 16 to 17% body fat. That's a good range to hit, and you should be able to see your abs at that point. Now for women, it's going to be around 18% to around 22% to see visible abs as well. So for men, you have a different target than women, but those are the targets you want to hit. There are different ways to test your body fat percentage. There are calipers, there are these bioimpedance machines. there's dunk tanks, there's DEXA scans. So the goal is this: if you're gonna test your body fat, some are more accurate than others, but use the same metric and do it first thing in the morning and do that consistently to get some trends and averages over time. Just use the same device and do it in the morning before you eat anything or drink anything. Next question is this: what are some other things I can do to achieve visible abs at age 40, 50, 60, 70, or 20? The goal here is to lower the hormone insulin. If you lower insulin, you're gonna burn fat. You're gonna burn fat very quickly. So let me share some more about how to do this. Check this out. This is the only thing that blocks fat loss. It's the hormone insulin. Look, many years ago, I was obese, 250 pounds, and I discovered the keys to fat loss, and it starts with this hormone insulin. As you can see here on the screen, after I lowered my insulin levels, I lost 80 pounds of fat. I went from 34% body fat to as low as 6% body fat. Completely transformed my life. With this transformation, I uncovered the combination to the fat loss code, and it starts with insulin. It's not just me who got this benefit. I've applied this principle of lowering insulin to thousands of students from all across the world, different walks of life, and take a look at their before and afters. You can see one after the other. When we lowered their insulin levels, it unleashed fat-burning metabolism. I'm gonna share with you in this lesson the best ways to lower insulin levels. This is the #1 key to weight loss. Let's start with the first step. The fastest, easiest way to lower your insulin levels is with intermittent fasting. Now, before I get into a specific intermittent fasting protocol, let me share how fasting helps with lowering insulin. And in addition to that, I'm gonna give you several other tips in this lesson for lowering insulin. These are tips you probably have never heard before. But allow me to share this. Insulin is the bully of your hormones. When insulin is called, your fat-burning hormones, they're running away. They're hiding because they cannot coexist when insulin is around. He's the bully at the playground. When you are not practicing intermittent fasting, you allow insulin to come out and do its thing and bully your fat-burning hormones around. In short, when insulin levels are high, you are storing fat. You are gaining weight. When insulin levels are low, you are burning fat. You are losing weight. The fastest way to lower your insulin levels is with the following fasting schedule I'm gonna share with you. I want you to think of your body fat, the extra weight you have on your body, as the freezers inside of your basement. And I want you to think of your liver and your muscle cells as the refrigerator inside of your kitchen. The first way we store energy is through the refrigerator. It's through your glycogen stores, your sugar reserves. You store sugar in the form of calories inside of your glycogen stores, your liver and your muscle cells. This is your refrigerator. Now, the benefit of using your sugar reserves, your refrigerator, is easy access. You open up the fridge, take food energy, put food energy back in. Same thing with your metabolism. Easy, quick access. You put sugar calories inside of your liver and muscle cells, pull it out for a quick use of energy, easy access. Here's the drawback: limited storage capacity. After you've filled your sugar reserves with about 2,000 calories, the average person could store about 2,000 calories, any extra calories are stored on your body fat, your stomach, belly fat, visceral fat, love handles, hips, on your face. That's a problem. Now, that type of fat we want to burn. In order to get there, we need to get access to those freezers in the basement. Again, the freezers in your basement are the body fat we want to burn. We need to get through all the groceries stored in your refrigerator in order to then go down to the basement and get all of the food stored in your freezer. Now, the drawback is that it might take a little bit longer to get to the freezers versus the refrigerator. The benefit, you have an unlimited supply of calories in the form of body fat that we're gonna burn for energy. Insulin is the hormone that determines how fast you'll get to burning the freezers in your basement, in other words, your body fat. Fasting is the quickest way to get there. I want you to follow this schedule. This schedule works so well. Again, I've showed you the testimonials in the beginning of this lesson, and if you're listening on the podcast, go watch it on YouTube to see the photos. Fasting is one of the key tools we use to accelerate fat loss by lowering insulin levels. And the schedule you're gonna follow is the following. For 6 days out of a 7-day period, you're gonna follow an 18-6 early time restricted feeding schedule. That means every day for 6 days, each 24-hour period for 18 hours, you're in this fasted state. In this fasted state, every hour you're in this state, you lower insulin, lower inflammation, burn through your sugar reserves, and eventually switch over to burning fat for energy. So for 18 hours, you're gonna be in that state of fat loss. What can you have during those 18 hours is only water, coffee, tea, your supplements, no food, no snacks. For 6 hours, you're gonna have your meals. And a little bit later in this lesson, I'll share with you the best foods to lower insulin and the worst foods that raise insulin. But for 6 hours, you're gonna have 2 to 3 meals maximum. This works even better when those meals are earlier in the day. This is called early time restricted feeding. That means if you could get your eating window between 8 a.m., so that's your first meal, breakfast, 8 a.m., another meal at 10 a.m., and then your final meal at 2 p.m., 6-hour eating window, and then fast from 2 p.m. all the way until 8 a.m. the next day, that's gonna be the best schedule to blast fat. On top of that, we have one more day out of the week because you're only doing that for 6 days. The other day, you're gonna perform a 24-hour fast. So to put this on a calendar for you, to make it easy for you, let's say Monday through Saturday, you're gonna be eating between 8 a.m. and 2 p.m., having 3 meals. Sunday, you're gonna have 1 meal. You're gonna have a meal at 8 a.m., only breakfast, and you're gonna fast the rest of the day, go until Monday at 8 a.m. and break the fast. You're going breakfast to breakfast for 24 hours. Again, only having water, coffee, tea, electrolytes, no food. Going into a 24-hour fast allows your metabolism to lower insulin even more. It also lowers inflammation, pulls fat from the liver, fixes the digestive system, also repairs the brain, helps with neural inflammation, and it's one of the best ways to lose weight. So that is your fasting schedule. 18-6, eating earlier in the day between 8 a.m. and 2 p.m. for 6 days out of the week, and then a 24-hour fast 1 day out of the week. You'll continue doing this until you have achieved your desired weight loss. Now, before we get into what to eat during your eating window, you could get extra bonus points here if you perform a fasted cardio workout that Monday morning before you break your fast at 8 a.m. If you're already fasted from Sunday at 8 a.m. and then you go into Monday morning, let's say it's 7 a.m. Monday morning, you're 23 hours in a fast, and you do a cardio session, a walk, a jog, a run for just 30 minutes, you're gonna really accelerate the fat loss here. You're putting your body fat at the front of this metabolic bus to be burned efficiently for fuel. Versus having breakfast and then going to work out, you put the calories from the food at the front of the metabolic bus to be burned for fuel. So bonus points if you really want to overachieve here. Right before you break that 24-hour fast, get a 30-minute cardio session. Now let's discuss what to eat. Well, we have 3 macronutrients, and when we study human physiology and we look at all the research out there, as you can see on the screen here for those watching on YouTube, it's the carbohydrates that will give you the biggest blood insulin response. Protein, the other macronutrient, and fat, the third macronutrient, gets you a minimal blood insulin response. So knowing this basic physiology means we want to eat more protein and fat, less carbohydrates. Unfortunately, the average American consumes over 300 grams of carbs per day. They're gonna gain weight. They're gonna develop insulin resistance and diabetes. The goal is to drop your total carbohydrate intake under 50 total grams per day. So during that 6-hour eating window that I mentioned, you should not go over 50 total grams of carbs within that eating window from those 3 meals. Some healthier swaps here, just to make it simple for you, of high insulin producing foods with healthier, lower insulin response foods are the following. You want to remove the following foods. These will raise insulin levels and contribute to fat gain, not fat loss. We have oats and oatmeal, cereal, all bread, grains, fruit and fruit juices, quinoa, white rice, brown rice, potatoes and sweet potatoes, and all legumes including beans, peanuts, lentils, and chickpeas. These are all going to be a high insulin response if you consume them. We want to swap those for the following: cauliflower rice instead of white rice. Squash rice and cabbage rice are also good options. Eggs with the yolk are great for lowering insulin levels. Red meat, which include beef and lamb, and small fatty fish like sardines, mackerel, anchovies, salmon, herring, and organic poultry and organic pork. So the focus here is actually protein and fat. You want to aim to get 1 gram of protein per pound of your ideal body weight every single day, with the exception of that 24-hour fast, because obviously you're not eating. What does that mean? That means if you weigh 185 pounds right now, but your goal weight, your ideal body weight is 135 pounds, then you want to hit 135 grams of protein per day. You could use free trackers out there to track your macronutrients to make sure you're under 50 total grams of carbs and hitting your protein requirement. I personally use and recommend Chronometer. It's a free app over at chronometer.com/ketocamp. I'll drop a link for it down below. The carbohydrates you are consuming should come from non-starchy carbohydrate sources that have a low glycemic, which is blood sugar, and insulin response. So here are the best carbs for lowering insulin. We have broccoli, cauliflower, arugula, Brussels sprouts, avocados, olives, zucchini, cucumbers, asparagus, mushrooms, green beans, and cabbage, and also squash. So that covers when you're gonna eat, what you're gonna eat. Now let's discuss some other really important ways to lower insulin levels and help you burn fat. It turns out one of the best things you can do is go for a short walk after your meals to sensitize, in other words, lower insulin, lower blood sugar levels, and burn fat. Here's why. There's something called postprandial glucose. This means when you eat food, there is going to be a rise in your glucose levels. When your glucose levels increase, your pancreas then shuttles out insulin to take that excess glucose out of the bloodstream and packs it into your cells. First, it packs it into your liver and muscle cells, as we mentioned, your sugar reserves, then anything excess goes into your body fat. The higher your blood sugar levels go after eating, the more insulin is required to deal with that. Now, just by doing fasting and eating the healthier carbs and lowering your carbs and focusing on protein, that alone will lower insulin. The next thing here is to go for a walk to really lower insulin levels. So the research is really clear on this. When you go for a 20 to 30-minute walk after a meal, you will use that excess glucose as energy for fuel right away and require less insulin to deal with it, helping you burn fat faster. Here's what the studies show. This study on PubMed showed the effects of postprandial walking on the glucose response after meals with different characteristics. This is a very interesting study. The study showed that postprandial brisk walking substantially reduced the glucose peak in both studies, with no significant differences across conditions. When evaluating the glycemic response, so that is your blood sugars after eating, throughout the 2 hours post-meal, postprandial walking was more effective after consuming a lower carbohydrate meal, a mixed meal, and even a higher carbohydrate meal, although higher glucose values were observed when they had a higher carbohydrate meal. They say our findings show that a 30-minute postprandial walking session improves the glycemic response after meals with different carbohydrate content and macronutrient composition, with implications for postprandial exercise prescription in daily life scenarios. So you want to go for a 20 to 30-minute walk after all your meals. If that's unrealistic, then go for that walk after your biggest meal of the day. Now let's get to some of the questions you have submitted here on the YouTube channel on this topic. The first question is this: how do I know if I have high levels of insulin? I'll ask you 5 questions here. And if you answer yes to 2 or more of the 5 questions, chances are you have high levels of insulin, called hyperinsulinemia or insulin resistance. Question 1, do you have 20 pounds or more of extra weight on your body? Question 2, do you have skin tags on your body, typically found on your back, neck, and around your eyelids? Question number 3, do you have brown patches on your body around the neck and the armpit area? Question 4, do you get hangry when you skip a meal? Hungry and angry, you have lower levels of energy when you skip a meal. Question 5, Do you feel tired after eating a meal, especially a high carbohydrate meal? These are all red flags of high levels of insulin. Now, the best way to know for sure if you have high levels of insulin is to get a fasting insulin blood test. This is a very cheap test. It's a blood test, and if you score anything over 10, you have high levels of insulin. The sweet spot for a fasting insulin blood test is between 3 and 7. Next question is this. I heard building muscle, lean muscle, is good for insulin sensitivity. What are your thoughts? My answer, 100% yes. Muscle is an organ, and it's called the longevity organ for a reason. The more muscle mass you have on your body. Now, I'm not saying to become a bodybuilder. I'm just saying to build lean muscle. The more lean muscle you have, the more insulin sensitive you are. Studies show that. It is completely clear and straightforward. That's because muscle acts like a sponge to soak up excess glucose, which means your pancreas does not have to produce as much insulin to deal with glucose in your bloodstream. You're going to use it as an energy source for your muscle cells. So yeah, work on your lean muscle mass. Do strength training. Great way to become insulin sensitive. It doesn't have to require a whole bunch of time and effort, by the way. 30-minute strength training workout 3 to 4 times a week. Focusing on compound movements that give you the biggest bang for your buck will be ideal. These are called primal movements. These are movements that require and recruit multiple joints and muscle fibers at the same time, as opposed to isolated movements. Now, it's still exercise and it's still good for you, but doing curls, leg extensions, and isolated movements, tricep extensions, that's not going to get you the biggest bang for your buck. Multi-joint movements are the best for building lean muscle mass. These include squats, push-ups, shoulder press, bench press, lunges, burpees, sprinting. Sprinting is amazing for lowering insulin levels and building lean muscle mass and burning belly fat. So yeah, I am a big fan of strength training. Make sure you're doing strength training to become more insulin sensitive. Next question is, what are your thoughts on meal pairing? Meal pairing is a really interesting concept, and how it works is essentially this. It turns out the order that you have your food in, your macronutrients, your 3 different macronutrients, will determine the insulin and glucose response from the meal. I've personally tested this wearing a continuous glucose monitor along with a lot of my students from the Keto Camp Academy, and here's what the research shows. The Weill Cornell Medical Center had this study, and it said researchers conducted a study with 11 patients who had type 2 diabetes and were taking metformin. Participants ate the same meals in different sequences. Carbohydrates first from ciabatta bread and orange juice, followed by protein and vegetables, chicken breast salad, broccoli with butter, and then they reversed the order the next week. Here's what they found. Results showed that blood glucose levels were 29%, 37%, and 17% lower at the 30, 60, and 120-minute mark when they ate the protein and the vegetables before the carbohydrates. The study also noted that insulin levels were significantly lower when carbs were eaten last. This means you want to have your carbs last. Have the protein and the fat and the vegetables first. Now, albeit you're not having a whole bunch of carbs in this protocol, but the carbs you're going to have, eat it towards the end of the meal. There's also a study from the Japanese study on food order, which showed something very similar. Participants consumed vegetables, protein, and fat before carbohydrates, leading to significantly lower blood glucose and insulin levels compared to when they ate carbohydrates first. This suggests that starting a meal with non-starchy vegetables and protein can slow gastric emptying and enhance the secretion of hormones that help regulate blood sugar. Here are the mechanisms of action of how this works. As I just mentioned, there's slower gastric emptying. Eating protein and fat first slows the rate of which food leaves the stomach, leading to a more gradual absorption of the glucose. Consuming protein and fat before carbs can increase the secretion of hormones like GLP-1, which stimulates insulin secretion and helps blood sugar without causing a spike in insulin levels. And I'll drop these studies in the notes for you to check out, by the way. The next question is this: does poor sleep raise insulin levels? It does, and it's one of the fastest ways to pack on fat with high insulin levels. That's because sleep is the Swiss Army knife of health. When you improve your sleep, you improve insulin sensitivity, you burn fat, you feel good. I want you to imagine your body as a well-orchestrated symphony, where each instrument represents a different aspect of your metabolism. Sleep acts as the conductor, ensuring that each instrument plays its part harmoniously. When you don't get enough quality sleep, it's as if the conductor is absent and the orchestra is going to fall out of sync. Stress hormones like cortisol start playing too loudly, drowning out the soft, steady rhythm of insulin, which is crucial, as we established, for regulating blood sugar. Simultaneously, hunger hormones like ghrelin and leptin start playing erratic and conflicting tunes, leading to overeating. This chaos results in a disjointed performance where blood sugar levels rise uncontrollably, much like a symphony gone awry without its conductor. Okay, what does that analogy mean exactly? That means if you're not getting quality sleep, that following morning, you're gonna have higher levels of cortisol, the stress hormone, higher levels of insulin, higher levels of blood sugar, higher levels of ghrelin, the hunger hormone, and lower levels of leptin, the satiety hormone. All bad things, and studies back this up. In this one study, the authors found that after 1 week of shortened sleep, your blood sugar levels are disrupted so significantly that your doctor would classify you as being pre-diabetic. When you're not getting quality sleep, the beta cells in your pancreas stop being sensitive to the signal of high glucose. Research presented at the Experimental Biology 2009 meeting highlighted the link between short and poor sleep and the increased risk of overeating and type 2 diabetes. Studies such as those published in the Annals of Internal Medicine and the Journal of Clinical Endocrinology and Metabolism and others highlight how sleep restriction in healthy adults resulted in decreased insulin sensitivity and hormonal changes that increase appetite and caloric intake. These studies show that sleep deprivation disrupts appetite regulation, leading to overeating and higher levels of insulin resistance. Stress responses and hormonal changes, including elevated levels of insulin and cortisol, also make this more complicated. A study published in Diabetes found that restricting sleep to 5 hours per night for just 1 week significantly reduces insulin sensitivity in healthy men. The study involved 20 healthy participants and demonstrated a 20% reduction in insulin sensitivity following sleep restriction. So part of your protocol here is to improve your quality of sleep. You could do this by not eating anything right before bed. Hey, perfect. The protocol I gave you, make sure you're done eating by 2 p.m. That alone will help with good sleep. You can also do this by making your bedroom dark and cold. Studies show in order to get good, deep delta sleep, this is the sleep where you burn fat, your temperature in your bedroom should be somewhere between 62 degrees Fahrenheit and 67 degrees Fahrenheit. And you also want to make sure it's a dark bedroom. So wear a sleep mask, put blackout curtains, make it a dark bedroom. You could also consider supplementing with magnesium, potassium. Melatonin is great for sleep. The overall goal here, if you want to get the best results with this protocol, is to improve your sleep quality. Not necessarily your quantity, meaning the total amount of sleep, but your quality, meaning the quality of the sleep you are actually getting. You could track your sleep with sleep trackers. I use this ring called the Oura ring, and I'll drop a link for it down below, which shows you how much total sleep, REM sleep, deep sleep you're getting. So just make sure you're prioritizing sleep. Well, there you have it. That is how I achieved visible abs at age 40 by drinking coffee and adding in those specific ingredients. I'll drop all the references, the studies, and all the links and everything mentioned down below. I hope you try this out. Let me know how it goes for you and share this with a friend. Now, if you want to take your fat loss to another level, I have a brand new video I just released on how to lose 10 pounds in 7 days using these keto egg rules. This protocol is perfect for the following people. You've lost some weight, but you still have the last 10 pounds to go. It's also for the person who has an upcoming event, an event that you want to look lean and you want to drop 10 pounds in a week. This will do it for you. This is also for the person who has fallen off track with their diet and nutrition and want to get back on track to kick